Yo, what up everybody? It's Tuna. I spent the last few days in Sanctum prison and I wanted to tell you guys all about it. So I ran a total of 92 Sanctums and that took me from level 95 all the way to level 100. The reason as to why you can actually level in Sanctum is the fact that you rarely ever die as long as you have a build that can actually succeed, and you get a ton of XP by killing the bosses, right? So every time you kill a boss you get a couple percent even at level 100, and they look to be about 3% per Sanctum at level 100. So the total of Sanctums that I ran from 95 all the way to 100 is 92, and I checked that in the log files, half of which were without relics and the other half were with specific relics that were to reveal most of my Sanctum, and that's these relics here. 2 additional rooms are revealed on the Sanctum map. These relics are very expensive. I purchased them at 14 divines each, however they are now going for 17. But I was able to buy these halfway through my grind as they were, I deemed that it was worthy to actually do these. So I started pretty much at 0 divines. This was after I bought, upgraded my build, bought my mage blood, all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to treat Sanctum as sort of like a rebuild, something that I wouldn't have to invest too much money in to begin with, and I could build my wealth up from there. So I saved up about 120 divines and then I invested that all into these relics. And of course I say invested because these relics, it's not like they disappear. When you are done with your relic grind, with your Sanctum grind, you can always sell them. So the way that I treat the items like these is, they're like rentals essentially. Whether the price goes up or price goes down by a little bit, you will 100% get your worth in the long run. Now, what did I use before I used those? So before I was using those, I was actually using relics that gave me maximum resolve. And we can see here a couple of them. So maximum resolve when you kill a boss, and I was just stacking these. And basically if you have a few of these, maximum resolve when you kill a boss plus maximum resolve, it basically makes Sanctum very, very easy because you can get hit a bunch of times and it doesn't really matter. You're going to have a ton of resolve by the time you get to the 3rd floor. And that's when it starts to become a little bit more difficult. So by the time you get to the 3rd floor, you'll have like 700 resolve if you have a bunch of these. You can basically just AFK all the way through it, and it's no problem at all. But yeah, so I did that for a few days, did half of my Sanctums like this, and I built up about 120 divines. And then from there, I purchased these relics, and I kept grinding and grinding. And then I ended up at a total of 160 divines. And yeah, 160 divines plus an original scripture. So that goes for 40 divines. So we can say that I made about 200 divines plus 112 divines from the relics. So that puts me at 312 divines. You can see 312 divines total from the Sanctums themselves. And that is also including, of course, all of the things that I bought on the way, the unique relics that I bought on the way. We'll talk about that a little later. But yeah, that is a total of 312 divines each. Now, how long does it take me to run a Sanctum? That is a question, right? And this is going to depend on your build. That is also going to depend on, how efficiently you want to run and all that kind of stuff. But it took me around about 20 to 25 minutes, and that was with interacting with chat and all that kind of stuff. So, talking with my community, with the boys in chat, anywhere between 20 to 25 minutes per run. So we're going to say 25 minutes per run, right? So I did 25 minutes per run, and we want to multiply that by 92. So that's 2,300 minutes, and we divide that by 60 because that's hours. So a total of 38 hours. And if I made 312 divines, in 38 hours, that means that I made 312 divines divided by 38. That is a total of 8.2 divines per hour in this grind. And that is also keeping in mind that I wasn't using these efficient relics for half of my grind. So I suspect that if I was using these from the start all the way to the end, if you have the currency to invest in these relics from the very beginning, you will be making a ton more currency from the get-go, and this number could be closer to 10 divines per hour. Sanctum is pretty insane. I kind of wanted to show you guys a little bit what the Sanctum map looks like with these relics, and also explain the setup, why I have 4 sensors and 4 urns. So that is because I was using the Hour of Divinity unique relic, and what this relic does is it allows you to duplicate up to 2 random offer rewards upon defeating the Herald of the Scourge. So if you don't know, now you have to defeat the final boss in Sanctum to be able to claim the rewards. And what this does is it duplicates 2 of the rewards that you have selected to drop at the end of the Sanctum and duplicates them. The way that you play when you have this relic in is you're not going to be choosing anything in the first few floors to be dropped upon the killing the Scourge. Rather, you will drop it at the end of the floor or at the spot. So you know how you have 3 options on choosing, you know, currency. You will always choose the first or the second, unless it's a divine orb reward, or unless you're on the last floor and there is no divine orbs in sight. That is the only time that you will choose that reward to drop at the end. And that means that if you find a 2 divine orb reward, that's going to turn into 4, and if you find 2 of those, then it's going to turn into 8, which is pretty insane. This is a 1x1, so essentially we'll have a 1x2, so this will fit right here as a sensor relic. And that is the perfect combination you can have there. There's also another relic that you could use that fits, you know, a 1x3. However, that means that you are a little bit inefficient, as you won't be able to fit 8 of these relics here, and so you will see 2 less rooms. However, that is an option, and that also has an option to you know, provide 1 to 4 rewards duplicated. So you can duplicate up to 4 rewards. But from my finding, it's very rare that you find, you know, 3 divine orb rewards per sanctum. On average, it's going to be anywhere between 1 to 2. If you're really lucky, of course, you can get beyond, but that only happened a few times. Maybe like I could count like 3 or 4 times in 92 sanctums that happened. So yeah, I wouldn't really count on that whatsoever. And especially since that one cost a fair bit more, you know, 1 divine, 1 to 1.3 divines or so, and it's not really worth it in the end. So I wouldn't run that one. But the downside of the Hour of Divinity, of course, is that you cannot gain any boons, right? This makes running the Sanctum pretty difficult in comparison to if you did. So you need a build that is strong for this. And there's a few builds that I can really recommend that are strong for this. On the cheaper side of things, you know, Shockwave Totem is insane. I have a friend who's running 17-minute Sanctums with Shockwave Totem. Also, another option would be to run Hexblast Mines. Hexblast Mines are also very, very good. You can run pretty fast, and you don't need much investment in that too. And on the very high end, I would say Tornado Shot is one of the best builds, since, you know, it has the ability to chain off of terrain, and since there are walls everywhere within the Sanctum, you're going to be chaining off of that. But that build is quite a bit more expensive compared to the other two. So if you are just wanting to get started into Sanctum, you know, look to roll into a Hexblast Mine or a Shockwave Totem build, because those will be the most effective at taking this content on a cheaper sort of investment. So before you want to invest heavily into Sanctum, I would really, really advise you to try a few of them, as you'll probably find that they are much, much harder than they were back in Sanctum League. You know, the boss is much tougher, the monsters do more damage, and all of that kind of stuff. So you need to make sure that your build is able to actually take them on before doing it. You know, try to do a few runs without boons, and try to do also a few runs without relics. And if you're not actually able to do them, then you can, of course, you know, go and use the relics that give you maximum resolve when you kill a boss, and that is going to make it substantially easier to run these. And you got to keep in mind that the Forbidden Tomes, they only cost 25 to 35C each. You are 100% guaranteed that no matter what, even if you can't see any of the map, to make that back in literally just, you know, it's no way you don't make that back. It's impossible. The amount of sextants you get, the amount of raw chaos orbs, and then the amount of raw divines you also get, it's just insane. Like, honestly, this mechanic, I gotta say, it's just broken. You have almost no investment aside for your build, and you can just run through here and make 8 divines an hour, right? Like, that's just stupid in my opinion. And it was even better at the start of the league, you know, because I think it has gone through, and this is just a conspiracy theory, but I think it has been nerfed a little bit. But also keeping in mind that at the start of the league, we had, you know, Sandstorm Visage was much more expensive. That was one of the easier relics to run. So you can see here that the Sandstorm Visage relic, which is called the Chains of Castigation, this one costs 25C, and Sandstorm Visage is actually 2 divines still. So even then, even if you don't want to worry about anything, you know, you just want to basically blast, you can put this on, you know, do your blind run, put your relics that make you not able to fail, and then you're guaranteed 2 divines per Sanctum, right? Which is the reason why this one is so cheap, is because people that run Sanctum, they're making more than that per run. So the fact that you don't see any rewards on the map, it's kind of like, it just makes it not worth it, since you can get these you know, these sensor and urns that reveal 1 additional room or 2 additional rooms. So again, back to talking about the relics a little bit. These show 2 additional rooms, and what that does is insane. But you could also have the ones that show 1 additional room, and those actually cost 1 divine each, comparison to 17 at the current time of recording. So you could just have 8 of those and you can see 8 rooms instead of 16, and you still make a ton of profit, and it's still worth to run the Hour of Divinity at that point, or just in general to just spam Sanctum without having any additional, unique relics. So I wanted to run, quickly show you guys what that looks like on the Sanctum map. So I will basically just open it up, and this is what your Sanctum map is going to look like with that. And the last floor is pretty much the same amount of rooms. So what you'll do is you'll basically be able to completely plan your path through the Sanctum. And yeah, it's basically like having all-seeing eye in every single floor. So yeah, you'll be able to plan through. You see all your stuff here. And if I was to have the unique relic, as I previously mentioned, you would not ever click the final reward. But what you would do is you would just basically rush on through to the floor. And some of them you have to like actually kill all the guards and whatnot, and others you can still rush all the way to the end. But yeah, you would rush through here, and if I was to use the Hour of Divinity sensor unique relic, I would never press this, right? Which might seem a little bit, like a little bit of a loss, but it is always worth it in the end, because once you get to the final floor and you find divine orbs, you're going to be duplicating them, right? And divine orbs are currently like 230 chaos each. So you'd have to actually click a ton of these for that to like make up for the fact that you're duplicating 1 or 2 divines. There's also the other side where if you don't use the relic, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff, and you can still get boons, which increases the time at which you could run the sanctums. You can run them faster, and you can select all of these rewards, which essentially means that you are losing money in the long term, but you're not like, it's not useless to run the sanctums without the relic or without the reveals. So do not be discouraged from running sanctum if you don't have the relics. It's still incredibly worth it, as long as your build can do it within 40 minutes or 30 minutes or so. It doesn't really matter. You're still going to be making a ton of currency. A lot of people are still struggling to make upwards of 4 divines an hour, and sanctum is just pretty much going to guarantee that, as long as you can run them within like 30 to 40 minutes each. So yeah, that is pretty much Sanctum. If you guys wanted to know a little bit more about the rooms and stuff like that, I could make a video later on sort of explaining the strategy, how to run the rooms, what unique relics are good, what boons are good and whatnot. But that is basically just going to be a little bit of an update and rundown as to whether it's worth it to run it. So yeah, for me, in a total of 92 of these things, I made 8.2 divines per hour. So for me, it's been really worth it. I could have made maybe a couple more divines if I was more efficient per hour, right? So I could have made 10 divines and upwards of 10 divines if I was a little bit more efficient. So on top of all the raw divines that you're dropping, you're also dropping a ton of these relics, right? And these relics here have a chance to also give, additional room reveals or vendor reveals. The one thing that people will look for is additional rooms or the extra choices at the vendor, as well as some of the others like, quantity of relics dropped. Like for example, these here, quantity of relic drops by monsters. Because if you actually get 100% quantity of relics dropped, this is going to basically duplicate the relics that monster drops. And some people actually choose to farm Sanctum specifically only to look for relics, right? So what I do is I just put them in a 1 divine dump tab until I get a ton of them. And then once I have a ton of them, I search for item level 85. And then what I will do is I will take all of the item level 85 relics and I will vendor them. You can 5-to-1 these, so when you sell them to the vendor, which I'll go do right now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom. You can see that she gives you an unidentified one, and this could have, it could have a useful modifier like basically revealing rooms or additional choices at the vendor. And I actually, in the 92 sanctums that I ran, I got 2 additional room reveals, and I got maybe 1 additional rooms. So that was like 5 divines from those. And I actually ended up selling a ton of relics for 1 divine that I didn't even think were worth anything. But yeah, eventually at some point you just spam vendor, and then, yeah, you're just hoping to get a good modifier on them. So you're basically looking to get that mostly on the sensors and on the urns. But, you can always also do that with the candlesticks and the coffers, etc., etc. In terms of unique relics, I don't really think it's worth it to run any of these, coffer relics. I never ran these. The power and promise is pretty decent. However, you know, in Eternal Damnation, it doesn't cost all that much at the moment in League. Maybe it's worth it more in the start of the League to run this. And it's definitely not worth to run this one here, the Blood of Innocence, as it makes the Scourge really difficult. You know, it gives it 50% more damage and take 50% less damage. So if you're not really confident with the boss fight, it can be quite difficult. And it's a 1 in 8 chance to get a Temporal Chains Balance of Terror, which is, you know, it's 12 divines. But that means that you are basically having to, you know, give up duplicating divines in favor of getting, you know, a Balance of Terror. And you can see, like, I ran some of these, but I actually never ended up getting a Temporal Chains one. I'm actually dry. I ran over more than 8 of them in the total of my Sanctums. So yeah, I didn't end up really enjoying this one. However, you know, if you're not running the duplicate currency, it's always worth to put one of these in, as long as you're confident enough to kill the boss. But I feel like this one, the Chains of Castigation, is actually pretty worth it to run, since it's going to be pretty much guaranteeing like 1.8 divines per run, maybe even more than that, 1.9 divines guaranteed profit per run. But it's going to completely make your map like you're not going to be able to see what the rooms give, what rewards you're getting, what boons you're getting. You can luck out and find the Divine Orb on the way to the boss, but it's very unlikely. And you can actually get unlucky too and get like a totally disgusting affliction that can potentially break your run, right? Unless you have like a broken build, or unless you are using the relics that give a ton of additional resolve when you kill the boss. In regards to the urn relics, they're not worth it at all, since Forbidden Tomes are actually pretty much like free in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, honestly, I would just stick to, you know, the one that duplicates the rewards or the Chains of Castigation. I think nonetheless 8 divines an hour is insane for the fact that I had to invest 0 trading, you know, almost 0 trading aside for the relics, but I could buy those in bulk. But you're basically just slapping these in and you're running them, and you're mindlessly running them all day, and you just make a ton of currency that way. So I hope this video was helpful, and I hope it has like sort of motivated you guys to run Sanctums. And yep. I hope you guys have a good day, and good luck everybody. Peace out.